I'm Jeremy Richards with the Garmon Law Firm and Associates. I'm a associate attorney and a trial lawyer for the Garmon firm, and I want to talk about pressure cookers, some of the liability aspects of pressure cookers, some of the ongoing litigation issues with pressure cookers, and I guess we need to start by understanding how pressure cookers work. And pressure cookers are used by both novices and professionals alike due to their ability to both heat and cook food, saving time and cleanup. Pressure cookers are sealed cooking pots that use steam to build up pressure inside the vessel. And food and liquid are placed inside the sealed pots and they're heated until the steam pressure builds. And the steam pressure tenderizes the food. It cooks quicker than conventional methods. And pressure cookers are equipped with pressure release valves that release the steam when the pressure in the vessel reaches a certain level. And for years, traditional pressure cookers resembled any other kitchen pot that a person would place on a stove. The only difference was the locking lid on the top and a pressure release valve. So long as the pressure relief valve was functioning properly, the pressure cooker functioned safely. Today, many companies manufacture electric pressure cookers. Those cookers, they cook more closely resemble, they look kind of like more like a crock pot or a slow cooker. The functionality and the utility of these electric cookers are the same as the stovetop variety. Electric pressure cookers come with features such as a timer, temperature gauge. Some even have food specific settings for different types of foods, and some even have Bluetooth technology is how advanced some of them are getting. And the stovetop pressure cookers require the user to monitor the temperature manually. Both manual and electric versions feature a safety valve to release the pressure before opening the lid. So that's remained the same from the older style to the newer style. Well, then that leads us into the question of what is the problem. Oftentimes pressure cookers reach temperatures far above 200 degrees, making their reliability for the utmost importance with temperatures that hot. However, malfunctions indicating the device is ready to be opened, as well as defective rubber rings around the lip of the pot, they have jeopardized the safety of consumers. If a pressure cooker is opened before the steam has escaped the entirety of the pot, it creates an explosion of sorts of the contents that are inside, and they're released. And at temperatures 200 degrees or more, this can lead to severe second and third degree burns. Anyone in the vicinity of the pressure cooker is at risk of having hot content spilled on their body. So it's not just the one who's operating it, or it's not the one who's closest. Some of these things, depending on what the pressure is, depending on what the contents inside, can go a long way and cause a lot of damage, not just to you, but there are cases where children have been impacted due to a defective pressure cooker. And pressure cookers that heat quickly and produce intense pressure and steam, and so it makes it a high risk for not just steam burns, but contact burns, splash or spill burns when it explodes, we were just talking about. The most common defects in pressure cookers that have been found is inadequate cooking pot seals. These seals are installed for the spillage, expulsion of cooker contents, and expected after a buildup of steam. So these are just the regular seals that you would see on the old and the new style pressure cookers. Then you've got the cooker gaskets. Defective gaskets may allow premature opening of the pot during the cooking phase, which causes serious burns and injuries. There is some litigation now where experts have testified that you should not be able to open the lid if the lid is sealed and it's under pressure. That anything outside of that would constitute a defect or a manufacturer's defect to allow you to do that. And then of course we have the exploding pressure cookers, poor material construction, inadequate steam venting. They may cause the pressure cooker to explode and cause serious injuries. So now, knowing the premise of how a pressure cooker operates and then some of the defects, now we look towards what happens So to establish a product's liability claim in connection with a pressure cooker that's caused you or anyone else near you harm, you're going to have to show the existence of a manufacturing, design, or a marketing defect. Generally, a pressure cooker does not explode under normal conditions, and if it does, it's a has a possible defect of some sort. Now, we just discussed a minute ago how, if you open the pressure cooker while it's under pressure, that can constitute a manufacturer's defect or a design defect. So just because it's opened and nothing blew up or exploded internally doesn't mean necessarily that there's not a defect. But some reported defects in pressure cookers, they include inadequate venting of the steam that results in explosions. There's another case that's going right now that typically around the release valves there's condensation that builds up, and some people will frequently wipe around that area, and if you do that, there's a chance that something could clog up the release valve or something of that nature. And it's a common practice for people to do that, but it's still an issue nevertheless. Faulty gaskets that allow a pot to be opened under high pressure. We just talked about how there are expert witnesses that have testified that you should not be able to do that if it's under pressure. Inadequate seals for the lids, which can result in intense hot spills. And then there's the manufacturing defects. These are flaws in how the pressure cooker is made. Typically, when there is a manufacturing defect, it's a one-off problem. And other pressure cookers in the line don't have the same problem. For example, a gasket was simply not molded correctly, and it may be defective manufacturing, where all the other ones in the line didn't have that molding issue, but nevertheless it's still a manufacturing defect. And then there's design defects that occur in all of the products in the line because a flaw exists in the design of the pressure cooker itself. Different jurisdictions require you to prove different elements in connection with the design defects. Generally, to show a design defect, the product must have posed a foreseeable risk when it was made as intended for the use and its intended purpose. You may need to show that there was foreseeable alternatives in design that the manufacturer could have used or produced the pressure cooker within its budget in a better manner, such that the pressure cooker could still be used for the same purposes. And then sometimes there are marketing defects. When a manufacturer knows that there are risks associated with the product, it has a responsibility to prove warnings or to provide warnings to the consumers. These warnings, they got to be adequate to warn the consumer of the risk using the pressure cooker in certain ways, or of the using the pressure cooker at all. It depends on the state where you're at. You may be able to hold a manufacturer strictly liable for a defective pressure cooker if you can prove a defect and the defect causes your injuries in certain jurisdictions. However, you have to show negligence. So in other words, you need to show that the manufacturer owed you a duty and breached that duty in how it was made in the design and marketing the pressure cooker. Proving a defect may require proof of additional elements. In some design defects cases, for example, it's necessary to retain an expert to show an alternative design that was available. And typically in cases where we litigate a product's liability case, we will always have an expert to be able to testify as to the defect. Once, if you're able to establish the manufacturer liability, you can recover compensatory damages for the pressure cooker injuries. These damages could include the emergency hospital treatment, the medical bills, surgery bills, disfigurement, scarring, loss of enjoyment, mental anguish, pain and suffering, loss of consortium. The scope of the damages and what can be recovered, it really depends on your particular situation. When an accident victim suffers third-degree burns in visible places, for instance, they may be able to recover more compensation for scarring and disfigurement and surgery expenses, pain and suffering, than someone that in a case in which they have a first-degree burn in a place that's normally concealed by clothing. So over the past several years we've seen several recalls and several companies recalling their electric pressure cookers due to defects. In 2015, Breville recalled over 35,000 fast slow cookers due to the unexpected release of build-up pressure. Um, Similarly, pressure cookers were sold by Well-Built Electronics on QVC for a while. They were recalled in 2006 due to the cookers opening prematurely, sending hot liquids everywhere. And despite these recalls, a lot of manufacturers continue to sell and distribute defective pressure cookers. One of the most popular pressure cookers that was on the market was the Power Pressure Cooker XL. This product is advertised and sold on TV still, but it's sold at many large nationwide department stores. So it's not only online sale, it's also, the same thing you would walk by in a lot of stores. And it appears that this pressure cooker has had numerous cases and design defects and flaw defects, but it continues to sell. Several lawsuits have been filed against TriStar, who's the company manufacturing that, related to the pressure release valves. Most recently, in March of 2018, it was reported that a woman in Texas suffered the severe burns after a pressure cooker exploded in her kitchen, and this was the case that I spoke about earlier, where she had been used. This is someone who'd used pressure cookers for a long time and knew how they worked, knew how they operated. She was using a towel, which is very common practice, to clean up moisture from the steam escaping on her pressure cooker. And within moments of her wiping it, the pot exploded, and hot contents of the pressure cooker went flying across her kitchen. Suffered burns from her neck and arm. And her experience with the pressure cooker, it's not like others because everyone's different. But in multiple brands, multiple versions, they have different injuries. So each case is its own case. Now there are some class action cases, and there are some times when the class action is the best route to go, and that's if you obviously have manufacturing defect that has established multiple different problems or defects in the product, and those products have caused consistent injuries with different parties, but all similar situated. And class action may be the route to go. However, most pressure cook cases, it seems they're their own independent case, because there's always some kind of a uniqueness to it, especially when it comes to damages, and the types of damages that you can suffer, from the scarring all the way to the hospital burn treatments, things like this. But we're certainly happy to answer any questions anytime you need us to do that, and look forward to hearing from you guys. And if you ever have anything you need us to look at, we're happy to do that and give you our take on it. And just anytime the Garmon Law Firm, we can help you out, we're happy to do that. Thanks.